Hey everyone, we're just waiting for everyone to join in, and then we can get going. But we've got awesome and very relevant to the chaos of the moment webinar with Natasha from Careershifters and the lovely Emma Osborne coming in later, founder of Sistr, and all things recruitment and shifting and pivot. Her story is amazing because we've already had you on a Instagram live chat. But I won't ruin the story now. But anyway, what have we got? Are people still coming in?
They are, yeah.
Over to Natasha Stanley, who's one of the head coaches at Careershifters. Is that what you would call yourself? A head coach, writer, and just all-round guru. And also got a podcast, and you also have a side hustle, which is very important. So I've been told in all our, and I'm beginning to look like an avatar again. I get this every time. So I'm going to hand over to Natasha of Careershifters, who is why everyone's on at the moment, the expert. So over to you, Natasha.
Yeah, thank you, Emma, and thank you all of you. I've been really looking forward to our session today. I can see people arriving. Hello, Amy and Katerina. Hello, Jolynn, Karen, Lorraine, Miriam, Robin, Sophie. It's great to see all of you here. A little bit of context for what I'm going to be sharing today, and also a request. It's really helpful for me if I can hear from you guys while I'm sharing what I'm going to share, because I have a hunch that each and every one of you is going to be in a slightly different position right now. So some of you might be in work, some of you might be out of work, you might have redundancy on the horizon, maybe you've been on furlough for a while. And so what I want to do is, in this initial conversation and what I'm going to share with you, I'm going to keep things fairly high level, and rather than going into specifics of specific situations, what I'd love to share with you is the underlying principles of what makes a successful shift into fulfilling work. I know that this year has been a bit of an explosion in a lot of people's lives. There's a lot of people using it as an opportunity to ask themselves the big questions, like, wow, is this really what I want to be doing with my life? And if the answer to that for you is maybe not, then the question that arises is, well, if not this, then what? And that feels like a big one. So what I want to share with you today are the places that you are likely to get stuck, and the success principles that we at Careershifters in the last 16 years of working with over 12,000 people have seen really works. So thank you to Emma and Robin saying hello in the chat box. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen. And what I'd love you to do is, in the chat box, let me know what is the biggest thing that's keeping you stuck right now when it comes to your career change. Maybe you're making a career change right now. Maybe you're just thinking about it. It's on the horizon. But what feels like the biggest obstacle in your way? Go ahead and let me know that in the chat box. And while you're doing that, again, just a little overview of what I'm going to cover. First thing I want to talk about is one of those career change myths that is peppered all over the internet, and it looks really seductive, and it's likely to be causing a real big problem in your thinking about moving into more fulfilling work. I'm going to share a more practical alternative that may actually get those cogs turning in a productive way. I'm going to share the 3 traps that we find at Careershifters. Every single person who comes to us and says, I'm stuck in my search for fulfilling work, are stuck in one of these 3 vicious circles. And I'm going to share what those are. And then I'm going to share the 3 success principles, one for each one of those traps, that we've seen everybody who finds fulfilling work has applied in some way. So I'm just going to take a quick look into the chat box to see what's popping up in there. So Lorraine, anticipating a salary downgrade. Yeah, if I make a career change, am I going to have to take a financial hit? Karen, not knowing what else to do. Like, I know it's probably not this, but what else is out there? Yeah. Sophie as well, there's so many options. Katerina, integrating my past work with my future work. Yeah, I've worked damn hard to get to where I am. How do I follow that thread and turn it into something useful? Robin, experience. Yeah, that old catch-22. How do I make a career change into something that I may not have experience in? This is great. Okay, keep this coming. And while you're sharing more of what's keeping you stuck, I want to talk about this. How many of you have seen this phrase emblazoned all over the internet? Maybe it's embroidered on a cushion somewhere, or there's a picture of someone stood on a mountain looking triumphant. What does it feel like when you see that phrase? Because it's all over the internet. All the self-help gurus are probably telling you that you need to do it. What does that feel like? Because in our experience, this idea is a real problem. And it is for a whole number of reasons. So there's one of the most popular courses at Harvard is the course called Design Your Life. And studies from the people who run that have shown that 80% of people do not have one single burning passion. 80% of people. And yet we're all told, if you want to do something fulfilling, you need to start by finding your passion. Like it might just be down the back of the couch somewhere. And once you've found it, then you can get on with making a career change. You may not have a single passion. You might have 20, or you might have none. You might just have a bunch of different interests and some skills and talents that correlate and that you could play with to really enjoy your life without it being a single passion. Now, I could talk about this all day long and why it's problematic, but because of time, I'm not going to. I just want to set the context that this is not the kind of stuff that we're peddling here, and that if it's not helpful to you, chuck this idea in the bin for the time being, because if it's keeping you paralyzed, waiting to take action until you have located this elusive passion is just going to keep you stuck for a really long time. Yeah, Robin, like it makes me feel like you should know what your passions are. Amy, did I miss a class on finding my passion? Exactly. How do we do this, right? Well, at Careershifters, what we found is a lot more helpful, particularly at the beginning of a career change when you're just juggling with these big questions, is not trying to look for your passion. Instead, it's looking for something that we call the fulfillment sweet spot. Now, this has been borrowed from the world of entrepreneurship, but we found it also really applies to the world of a career change. And your fulfillment sweet spot is the intersection of 3 key questions. So the first question is this: what gives me energy? So not what is my passion? What am I passionate about? What do I just wake up burning for in the morning? It's not about that. It's about what are the things where, when I do them, I feel energized by them. So I'll let you in on, it's not really a secret. I was going to say it's secret. It's not, that's a lie. I was just saying to the Sistr ladies before we came on, I'm coming out of the back of a really stinking cold. And I woke up this morning, I was like, oh, I'm going to have to do a webinar. I'm tired. And actually, now that I'm here talking to you and hearing from you all in the chat box, there's a bit of a buzz going. Like, I don't feel tired anymore. I'm excited by this. I'm energized by it. And what gives me energy isn't just about the what of what you're doing. Often we get really hung up on the activity or the role that we might be looking for. But when we're answering this question, we're also looking at, where am I when I'm most energized? What kind of environments? What kind of people am I around when I'm energized? Right? So it's not just the what of what you're doing, it's the where and the who and the how. Am I most energized when I've got loads of things on the go, or when I'm deep diving into one thing? All of these things can help you answer this question. The second question that's really important to answer is this: what am I good at? And again, this isn't just about in a work context. So at Careershifters, we differentiate between talents and skills. Talents are things that you're born with. You have a natural affinity to certain types of things. Skills are things that you've learned and built up an ability in over time, and they both go into this circle. If you have spent a while in a career that just isn't working for you, it may be that you've had some trouble identifying your talents because you haven't been using them very much. Instead, you've been focusing on building up skills which are a great investment, but may not actually be giving you the buzz that you need when you're working. So both of those things go into that circle. The third circle, which is really important and is often overlooked by the Find Your Passion Brigade, is what will the world pay for? A lot of people will tell you, follow your passion and the money will come. For me, and for us at Career Shifters, that is not a gamble that we're a big fan of taking. Instead, if you can look for the answer to this question in a really practical way, then what you're coming into is the fulfillment sweet spot, the intersection of these three circles. Now, if you're here on this webinar, then it's likely you're falling in somewhere in the bottom of these two, right? You're good at something because you're still getting paid for it, and you found something that the world will pay for. But if this is missing, that's where the fulfillment can often feel like it's just fallen off a cliff. So how is this landing as a concept and as an alternative to the old Find Your Passion patter? I'm really interested to hear. Let me know in the chat box. How is that landing? Amy, Ikigai, yeah, exactly. This is a kind of simplified version of that. Borrow it from a book called Good to Great by a guy called Jim Collins. He calls it the hedgehog principle. I have no idea why. But we've borrowed that from him in the world of entrepreneurship and applied it to career change. So yeah, let me know in the chat box how this is landing. Yeah, Sophie, I like the what gives me energy section. Yeah, I'm interested, Sophie. What do you like about that? What feels different? Emma, sounds right to me. Yeah, good, good. So I'm going to move on now to something we call the career change paradoxes. And these are the three vicious circles that every career changer who is stuck somewhere is stuck in one of these three bad boys. And I call them paradoxes because they sound like they're impossible to escape. But what we found is that by applying what we're about to talk about later on, the success principles, you can get out of them. But it's helpful to know what these are, because when you can see the thing that's keeping you stuck clearly, it's much easier to tackle. So as I go through these, let me know which ones of them you recognize. Let me know in the chat box. So the first career change paradox is this. It's you that wants to make a change, but it's also you that's your biggest obstacle. So it's clear that you want to make a shift. You wouldn't be taking time out of your Tuesday to be here with us today if it wasn't something that was important to you. But what we've found is that also, although the external obstacles can be real, they all feel kind of figure outable. The real core issues that are likely to be keeping you stuck are internal to you. And they take three forms. The first is fears. So let me know in the chat box which fears you have around making a career change. Some common ones are fear of financial disaster, fear of looking like an idiot in front of your friends and family and being judged by people for giving up on what looks like a good career, fear of the unknown, just in general, like I don't know what I'm stepping into, and what the rest of my life looks like feels uncertain. I'm going to take a look in the chat box, see what's coming up. Kirsten being an imposter. Robin, will I be good at it? Karen as well. Yes. Yeah, got it. Yeah, and fears are very normal in any kind of big life change. It's unlikely that they're going to go away, but what they can do is put a real stamp on the brakes of your career change. Jolynn, fear of jumping from one fiery pot to another. Yeah, I had that when I made my own shift. It was like, I've already done it wrong once. What if I get it wrong again and I end up in another career that still isn't right for me? Katerina, I'm fearful of not being taken seriously. Yeah, who the hell am I to want to move into this new industry? Who's going to take me seriously? Another way that you are your own biggest obstacle is through things like assumptions. So again, let me know which of these sound familiar. I'm too old to make a career change. It's too late for me. You can either make a good living or you can do something meaningful and enjoyable. You can't do both. If I make a career change, I'm going to have to go back down to the bottom of the ladder and just make tea for 25-year-olds. Like, which of these sound familiar? Yeah, Katerina as well. I'm too old to make a career change. Yeah. Now, you know what? Some assumptions are true. Some of the things that you have as assumptions in your head may be true, but they might not be. And as long as you don't know for sure which one's a fact and which one's a fiction, it's you, not them, that are getting in your own way. So that's the second way that you are your own biggest obstacle. The third one, and let me see, who was it who was talking about this a little bit earlier? Yeah, so Karen, you were saying not knowing what else to do is my major obstacle. Who else has that issue? So I don't know what else is out there. And this, again, is no fault of your own. Each and every one of us as a human being, we walk around in like a bubble of our own reality. I used to work in the charity sector doing frontline work with vulnerable groups. I could have told you all of the ins and outs of that industry. I knew so much about it. But I didn't know anything really outside of that because I wasn't coming into contact with it. I didn't know much about the corporate world. I certainly didn't know that what I do now was a thing. Not because I was stupid, but because it was just outside of my field of vision, and you can't be what you can't see. So this is the other way that you are your own biggest obstacle. No fault of your own, you just can't see what else is out there. So yeah, thank you to Miriam and Kirsten saying, yeah, I don't know what to do. This is a big obstacle. So how is this landing with you? Does this feel real? Does this feel like it's something that you're also stuck in, that you want to change, but it's also you that's your biggest obstacle? Let's take a look. Yeah, Amy, you don't know what you don't know. Totally. So the second career change paradox is this. You can't figure out what you want to do by figuring it out. Now, if we hit rewind and we went back to 2012, you would have found me dry-mouthed, square-eyed from doing 150,000 personality tests online. I would have had lists all over my bedroom floor, lists of strengths, lists of weaknesses, lists of things I might want to do, lists of this and that, and self-help books falling out of my ears. I would lie in bed at night running crazy thought loops in my head, like maybe I could become a yoga teacher. Oh, that's not going to work. You're never going to make any money from doing that. Maybe I should become a business consultant. Oh, who's going to take you seriously, Natasha, coming from the charity industry? Blah, 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 blah. Drove myself mental trying to figure out the answer. And what was really frustrating about this was that I'm not stupid. I got paid to solve problems every single day, but I couldn't solve this one. And the reason that I couldn't is that career change is not an algebra equation. If the answer to your career change lay in your head, you would have found it by now. If it lay in a personality test, you've probably done enough to have found out what you can find out. It's not in there. It's not in the self-help books, because if it was, you'd be further along now than you are. Is this ringing true? Are you also doing this, like trying to figure out the answer in your head? Let me know in the chat box. So this is another place where people get really stuck, is by trying to figure out their career change. Emma, I did that for 3 years. Yeah. Amy saying exactly what I've been feeling since I was 17. Karen, definitely. Yeah. And it's so frustrating, particularly for intelligent, successful women, because this seems like a problem that just cannot be solved. And it just can't be solved in this way. The third career change paradox is that it's unlikely you're going to find your ideal job by looking for it. What? So a lot of you have already said, who's going to take me seriously in a new industry? I don't have the experience that people are looking for. It is soul destroying. And I remember this really clearly, scrolling endlessly through job sites, looking for a job that looks like it would be fulfilling and is also being offered by an organization who's willing to take a punt on somebody who doesn't have experience in this industry. You see something exciting, you open up the person spec, it says 170 years experience in a related industry. You think, I don't have 5 minutes, and your confidence just nosedives, right? I used to do this all the time. And then what you do is you send your CV off, hopefully, into the darkness of the internet, hoping that somebody will give you a chance when there's so many more experienced people applying for this than you are. I affectionately like to call my CV a list of things I don't want to do anymore. And I got the results from that. And I got the results from recruitment agents as well. I'd go to them and I'd say, I want to make a career change. And they'd look at my CV and they'd say, oh, we can definitely help you. How would you like to do exactly the same thing in a different organization? It's like, no, this is not what I want to do. But the traditional job market is designed for people to move up, not sideways. So if you're banging your head constantly against the wall, it's because you're trying to move in a system that isn't designed for you to do what you're trying to do as a career changer, right? Amy, I feel like you're seriously in my head. It's because I've been there as well, Amy. Honestly, I really have. So this all looks fairly bleak, right? When we look at things like this. And so what I want to share with you now at a high level are the principles that address each one of these. They are going to sound a little bit too simple and also highly problematic at the same time. All of the, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, I call them the shitty committee. It's all the little voices like, yeah, but I can't. They're all going to come up as I start to share these. And I invite you to really look at how you can apply them, because every single successful career changer that we've worked with has applied these in order to escape these paradoxes. So the first success principle relates to this first career change paradox. So fears, assumptions, your own lack of knowledge, you can't be what you can't see. What successful career changers do differently is they do this whole thing with other people, not on their own. Why? Because if your biggest obstacle in your career change is you, it's probably best you don't rely purely on yourself. Career change, and I am speaking from bitter experience here, is an emotional roller coaster. I spent many evenings with all of the skin around my fingernails bitten, just in floods of tears, trying to summon the energy to keep going with it when my confidence was low or something had happened that didn't make me happy. I didn't have anybody in my corner when I made a shift because I was too proud to tell people how I was feeling, and because I didn't really believe that anybody wanted to help me. Actually, what we've seen is that if you can just have one or two people in your corner, trusted friends and family, other career changers, people like us at Careershifters, and this isn't a pitch for services, it's whoever you want. If you have people in your corner, they can help you keep the motivation going when things get tough. Also, if you can't be what you can't see, remember these reality bubbles, the best way to make your reality bubble bigger is by bumping your bubble into other people's bubbles. Other people know things you don't know. They have ideas you don't have. They've had experiences you haven't had. So putting a support team around you to go through this process is like the oil to the career change machine. It makes things move so much faster. There will be people in your life who are naysayers in this process, who think that you're nuts, who don't seem supportive, who aren't in your corner. That's fine. Let them do their thing. But identify a few people and give them an active role in supporting you, not just to moan at down the pub, because goodness knows a lot of our friends have probably heard enough of that. But I need to have like a half an hour phone call with you every week to make sure I keep taking steps forward. Or I'd love you to introduce me to some people who do jobs I've never heard of before to make my bubble bigger, right? Doing this with other people makes everything move faster. I've got lots of stories of how this works as well if you're interested later on. So let me know how this is landing. I've noticed the chat box has gone a little quiet. I'm always curious to know how these things are landing. What's the shitty committee saying? And as you're doing that, let's move on to the second career change paradox, which is you can't figure out what you want to do by figuring it out. So list makers, personality quizzes, self-help books, all of this kind of thing. What actually works is by not figuring it out, but acting it out. If the answer to your career change was in your head, you would have found it by now. And this is basic systems theory. Okay, so I don't know if this is the same for you, but when I made my shift, I felt like I was chasing my tail inside my head. I was coming up with the same ideas over and over again and chucking them in the bin. Like, that's not going to work. I can't do it. If you want new ideas and new outputs, you have to feed your brain new inputs. It's systems theory. If you're working with the same raw materials, you're going to come up with the same stuff all over again. So what's really important is that you take yourself into places you've never been, events you've never attended, have conversations with people that you've never thought to have conversations with before. Listen to podcasts on subjects you've never even considered before, not because you think that you want a career in those things, but because those little sparks of, oh, this and this, suddenly you get new ideas. Seth Godin talks about this. He says ideas occur when dissimilar universes collide. So you need to be colliding yourself into different universes in order to get new ideas and new possibilities. And this is going to feel uncomfortable, because what we're asking you to do here is take an action without knowing where it's going to lead. We're really well trained to have the final destination in mind before we start moving. And what we're asking you to do here is to do completely the opposite. I have no idea where I'm going, so I'm just going to go into somewhere new and see what emerges and arises. It feels very counterintuitive, but it is single-handedly the most effective way of coming up with new ideas and new possibilities. It's also the best way to de-risk your shift. So if you have an idea, but you're not willing to chuck away everything that you've worked for on the basis of a hunch, you shouldn't. Lots of you were talking about this feeling of like jumping out of the frying pan and into the fire. If you want to be absolutely certain that the ideas you're playing with hit the fulfillment sweet spot, the best way to do that is to go and get your hands dirty and find out, how can I experience these ideas as up close as possible so that I can find out, does this energize me? Am I any good at it? Will the world pay for it? So this might be work shadowing somebody who works in that industry. It might just be an informational interview, having a conversation with them. It might be going to an event or a conference. Even during COVID times, the people that we're working with are doing so many things that would never otherwise have been available to them, because there are events and classes and things online that's suddenly available from all over the world. So action is your fastest way to clarity, even if you don't have a final destination in mind. How is this landing? Robin saying that does work. Yeah. Amy, yeah, I used to throw myself into uncomfortable networking events, trying new things outside my comfort zone. Yeah, absolutely. And you can start small, you know, you don't have to terrify yourself in order to go and do something new. Just, you know, Elizabeth Gilbert talks about following your curiosity, right? Like, just go have some fun. What would be a really fun new thing to go and explore? And start getting those new inputs in order to get the new outputs and ideas. The final paradox: unlikely you'll find your ideal job by looking for it. So get out of the job sites. They're not helpful. And sending your CV, if it is indeed a list of things you don't want to do anymore, maybe people are going to want to see it, but don't lead with it, right? Allow people to see you first. And the way that you do that is by looking for people, not for jobs. Now, Amy, you were just talking about uncomfortable networking events. I avoid the word networking like the plague. I'm much more interested in making friends with really cool people. And if you're an introvert, actually, you're really good at this. For those of you who are introverts and thinking like, oh God, networking or people, that sounds overwhelming. Actually, you are excellent at this. But going to find people who are up to things in the world that are interesting and asking them about their work. First of all, this provides the clarity that you need about that fulfillment sweet spot. So you work in landscape gardening. I've always loved working outside. I've always loved the idea of getting my hands dirty and doing something physical. I don't really think it's going to pay what I need. What do you actually get paid? How does this work in practice? Going and finding out through conversations with people. And the reason that this is so effective is, first of all, it gives you the information that you need to make an informed decision about where you're headed. It also expands your reality bubble, because you're investigating areas you're interested in, and then those people can point you to other things that you never knew existed outside of your reality bubble. And they get to see you as a 360-degree, multidimensional, interesting, funny, probably kind of weird, but ultimately brilliant, talented human being, not just a nicely formatted list of things on a piece of paper that don't really reflect who you are as a whole person. Ben Kasnocha, the author and the entrepreneur, says, if you're looking for an opportunity, they are attached to people. So the more friends you can make who are doing interesting things, the more relationships you can build, the more honest and authentic you can be about where you're at, the faster you're likely to move into more fulfilling work. Not in a networking, transactional, what can you do for me kind of way, but genuinely being curious about who people are and what they do. It's how I made my career change. It's how I landed my role at Careershifters, was reaching out to really interesting people and saying, hey, I want to know what you do. You're so interesting. And people love it. There's studies that have been done where they put people in brain scanning machines, and they found that when people are talking about themselves, the same parts of the brain light up as when you're eating chocolate or making love. Like, that's how good it feels to talk about yourself. So what a gift you're giving people by saying, hey, will you tell me about you? It's great for them, and it's really, really helpful for you in order to escape that final paradox of scrolling through job sites. So I've just been talking a lot for a while, and thank you so much to all those of you who have been sharing in the chat box about how all of this has been landing. And yeah, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and come back to everybody and see what questions have been coming up. Emma, let me hand over to you.
That was awesome. I love squiggly career chat and side hustles, and actually if anyone has never heard of Elizabeth Gilbert, and that whole curious chat, I had it on Oprah Winfrey's, the Soul Session podcast, and her one with Elizabeth Gilbert on that is exactly that, of people getting so caught up in trying to find your passion and going, I'm not passionate about anything and I'm a failure, and how, I'm meant to be passionate about something. And she is so heavy on it's all about being curious. And
yes,
Mum said to me when I was growing up that I used to do her head in. I still do her head in by just questioning and not accepting anyone that says, well, that's just how it is. I'm like, no, that's not an answer. Question. So yeah, totally agree with that. Just, and now I think it's that perfect time, isn't it, when people are sat at home and people that inspire you and people you've looked up to, and business people, women who are, they're sat at home, unable to do their usual 5,000 mile per hour, traveling all over the place, too busy for everything routine. So now is the time to stalk them, message them, ask them for 5 minutes, because as you said, everyone likes talking about themselves. So all these, people you see on paper that are successful and doing amazing jobs, honestly, reach out to them, message them, because they'll probably love to tell you their story and think that someone out there gives a shit about all the work they've done and the hard work put in. But I don't know, is there your story? I mean, what was sort of what were the big light bulb moments that made you go, right, enough, I want to change, I want to do something different, and this is it? Were there things that you found?
I never had a big light bulb moment, and actually I find that the idea of the big light bulb moment is another one of those risky myths that we kind of sit waiting for a big Monty Python finger to come down from the sky and be like, this is the thing. My experience was much more like a long string of fairy lights, of like a little glow over here, like, actually this doesn't quite feel right, and then trying to ignore it, and then getting curious about this thing and then following that. I'd reached the point in my old career where I was waking up in the morning, and you know that moment when you've just woken up and you don't really know who you are yet, much less what the day involves, and then like boom, in comes all of that, oh, this is what my life is like. And I would wait, I'd hit that moment and I'd just have tears streaming down my face. I felt so out of place. I felt so exhausted all the time. I'd look at my boss and my boss's boss and my boss's boss, and I think, I don't want their jobs. People would ask me what I did at parties, and like I worked in the charity sector, very noble, right? But I wouldn't want to answer because it didn't feel like me. I'd dread that question. And I did everything that I don't recommend people do to make a career change, because I didn't know what I know now. I quit my job, put my house on the market, told my friends and family they wouldn't see me for a few months, and I booked a one-way flight to Greece, because it turns out that's how I deal with stress. Don't do that. Don't do what I did. I made every mistake in the book, and I fumbled my way through literally just by following these tiny little fairy lights. I'm kind of interested in this. I wonder where that's going to lead me, and taking little actions all the way through. It's a massive surprise that I made a shift, to be honest, because I made every mistake in the book.
I'm with you like that. I packed up at age 22. I ran off to the Caribbean. Don't know why. But actually, Emma, when we get onto the other, so many Emmas on this. Emma Osborne's story, the Sistr Kind story, there's a big travel element there. So do you know what it is? You've just got to, and when you look back, you see that this whole, each step that's been taken, even though it seems like a little tiptoe step or a giant step across, you know, a gaping chasm, it's all forward, isn't it? It's that you've just got to keep taking the steps, no matter how big they are or how tiny they feel, you know, that it's all forward, and it all adds up, and it all, you know, you look back, I look back and regret nothing, because without the real stupid steps, you know, the steps involving thousands of neon lights and glow sticks, that at the time you don't think, you know, mean anything. It all gets you there, doesn't it? And it's the people you meet, that's the thing.
Totally. Steve Jobs talks about this, right, in his like famous commencement speech. He says you can only join the dots looking backwards. You can't join them looking forwards. And it takes so much to take action without knowing where you're headed. And I love what you're saying there, Emma, about like the little things. Like I always talk to my clients about making micro shifts, like a 5-minute action, like a tiny, tiny little thing. That's all there is to do next, is just open your email client. Don't have to do anything beyond that. Just open it, or just see what event is happening in your area or in your time zone online or whatever works. Just take a look. That's a step forward. And then once you've gone there, then something might emerge for where to go next. But we are so trained not to take any action until we know how it's all going to pan out. And so it really takes some courage and some practice to be like, I'm just going to do a whole bunch of stuff and trust that there will be lessons in there. There will be those tiny light bulbs that can lead me forward. Yeah.
And especially at the moment with everything going on, it is that I just say to people, day by day, you know what I mean? We don't know. That you have to stop, you know, you can't control the things you can't control, and we've got no idea the end point. You know, a big part of all my businesses are events. I've got no idea. So it's like, I don't even worry about it. Can't control it. It's like day to day. What am I going to do today? Some days I wake up going, nothing. you wake up and go, literally, there is no point me fighting today. It is a nothing day. And it's being able to not feel guilty about having a nothing day. And you just go, tomorrow, this is what I'm doing. And as you said, it's the little, just booking something in or going, right, I'm going for an hour walk. That's what I'm going to do every day. That's what I'm going to change. It's that one foot in front of the other, little changes, little things. Looking online, you know, like someone said, you know, they were just randomly looking online and found this event. There are thousands of free events like this, and or events listening to really interesting, you know, panel discussions with women who've, you know, done amazing things, and that's all you need. Sometimes you just need the energy of listening to someone who's achieved great things to listen, to inspire you. 10 minutes of listening to someone who with amazing energy and an amazing story can totally change your mindset into, right, do you know what, I've got this. I'm going to go and make myself a cup of tea. That's my movement today. It's progress. So yeah,
the crucial thing around that, though, I think is actively choosing actions to take that will give your brain new inputs to work with, have you in connection with interesting people who can expand your view of what's out there and who can challenge these assumptions that we all have. Like, it's not a bad thing to be carrying assumptions and fears about your future career. Like, we all have it. And the thing about fears is that they're not going anywhere. They just change. You get rid of one and there's another one because you've moved 10 feet forward. So taking actions that are wide enough to bring you into new spheres and give you a new view of what's out there, but small enough that they don't feel terrifying, and as you're saying, Emma, can move you forward. If you're taking lots and lots of actions in fields and areas that you already know about and that are already in your bubble, you might find out more about them and challenge some of your assumptions. But what's really crucial for people at the start of their career change who are dealing with, well, what else is out there? I can't see everything out there. Choosing those actions really carefully to tactically take yourself into new environments. It's going to be really important.
What and just to end before we hand over to another Emma, what are your kind of day-to-day in the crazy right now? Are there things that you do every day that you wouldn't not do, like proper little habits that do keep you sane?
Habits to keep myself sane right now.
Sane and motivated.
Sane and motivated. I mean, in a work context, the more I do stuff like this, the better.
Yeah.
So when I speak to people or I hear from people in the chat box who are in a position that I was in however many years ago, that's what keeps me sane and grounded, because it reminds me of why I'm doing what I do. Like, I don't do this because it's just something to do or I've got good at it. I do it because I remember how it felt, and I don't wish that on anybody, that uncertainty. In terms of my own mental health, honestly, I've been really bad at that this year. And I wish I was one of those people who had like a really inspiring morning routine. And I'm like, yeah, I drink my green juice every morning. I don't. Like, I take things morning by morning, as you're saying, Emma. Sometimes I give myself what I need. Sometimes I really don't. And I had a damn good cry last week because I took a week off work and it all just caught up with me, and I bawled to my poor partner. I don't know what I'm doing. I wish I had a really inspiring, like, yeah, I do this every day and now my life is amazing. I'm just muddling through,
Do you know what? I think it's more inspiring when you hear that than someone that goes, well, I face scrub and then I do this and then I sit there and practice mindfulness for 30 minutes and then and that's all before 4 a.m. No, so I think the real rawness is actually more inspiring, because people just feel normal, that they're normal, that there's nothing wrong with them, that even the most inspiring women out there and the top business people out there all think the same thing. They still think the same thing. They're still, as I call it, faking it till they make it. So well, do you know what, thank you very much. We are gonna,
you're welcome.
And that was awesome. And I'm sure if anyone wants to get in touch with Natasha or Careershifters as a whole, there's loads of amazing resources and workshops and loads of things you can do. So yeah, and we will be sending out the tip sheets of what you've spoken about. So if anyone's forgotten anything, then it'll all be sent out. And also this, I think this will go up as on YouTube, won't it, Emma? The other Emma, the third Emma.
It sure will. Yeah, it'll go up on YouTube. It will go up on the Sistr site as well. So log in there and then you can get all the bits that you need from Natasha and from Emma.
And Emma and Emma.
Right.
Cool. All right, and thank you so much, Natasha. We are gonna move on to Emma Osborne, firstly, we apologise for spelling your name wrong for days across our social media.
That's quite all right. It's happened before. I blame Ozzy Osborne, who spells his name with a U, and I don't have a U, and it's most upsetting, but no problem.
That's all right. I always get sales. People put an S on the end of my name, which is one of my pet hates, but hey, move on, sale. But the CEO and founder of Sistr, an amazing recruitment agency, basically working with brands and companies that are doing good and sustainable and eco-friendly and just doing good in the world. But you've been in and out of recruitment for 17, 18 years, and you tell a story of the squiggle.
Yes, well, listening to Natasha, it was quite it brought it all back to me, to be honest, because I felt just as she described, very lost for a good 3 years. I've been in recruitment for a long time, and actually in preparing for this, I started thinking about how I even got into recruitment. And I realized that actually throughout my life, the reason I got so stuck, I think, is that I'd just sort of fallen into all of my jobs. Even at school, when I was asked to choose my A-levels, I was really unsure about what to do, and so chose 3 completely unrelated things: English, maths and economics. I mean, what are you going to do with those? Like, what are you? And then went to university and made a mistake and chose business studies and found it boring, so then went to English. And so I feel like almost throughout my life I've not really ever quite gone, yes, this is it. Because then my first job in London was working in an estate agency, and I only took that because they offered me a brand new Mini, and I was like, awesome, yeah, great, I'll do that, sure. Never mind the crap salary and the awful hours and the horrible working environment, I'll just go for the car. And then obviously after a year of doing that, I got completely burnt out. It was my first job, and I was like, oh yeah, I can't continue doing this. What am I going to do next? Oh, well, I'll just go to the competitor, because that's what you do. So went to the competitor and nearly fell asleep. I'd gone from this really dynamic, crazy, intense environment where you were almost thrashed to perform as a salesperson, and then went to this, like, you could hear a pin drop in the office. So I was like, well, this isn't right either. But then what am I going to do? And so I did what has become my default mechanism, it seems. And I went traveling and went to Australia and New Zealand for 3 months and had a lovely time with a friend of mine. And all of the time thinking, right, well, this is going to be it. I'm going to discover what it is I'm supposed to do on this trip. And of course, all we did was go and see all the things that you're supposed to go and see and do all the stuff you're supposed to go and do. I wasn't going to discover my career skydiving, was I? So came back none the wiser. And then was like, oh Christ, what am I going to do? So got the same job, got an estate agent job, and but on a temporary basis, as a commitment to myself that I wasn't going to just do it. It was just a placeholder. And then a friend of mine got a job through a recruitment agency, and he said, why don't you go and speak to them, and they'll be able to help you. And they were a media specialist recruitment agency. And I was like, well, there's no point me going speaking to them because I haven't got any media experience, so that's pointless. And he's like, no, you're a salesperson, they do media sales roles, they'll probably offer you one of those. All right, so I really had to have my arm twisted, and I went along, and actually I was right in one respect, in that they weren't going to give me a media job because I didn't have any media experience, but they did offer me a recruitment job working for them. I came away and said, and actually at the time I said, no, that's such a cliche, like estate agent, recruitment agent is just like, that's what everybody does, I'm not doing that. And I knew nothing about it except that was what some people had done. So dismissed it out of hand, went away and thought about it, and then thought, actually, that's the part of my job I really liked, was matching people to flats and houses, but the flats and houses were boring because they all just looked the same after a while, like, whatever. But I was like, but it's always the people that really interested me. So I was like, actually, if you had people and people, that could be really interesting. So I went back and said, I might have been a bit hasty. Could we actually explore that a bit? And luckily they said yes. And so that was how I became a recruiter. But that resistance was there even then. And then I was a recruiter for them, worked for the same company for 12 years. So I spent the first 3 really happy and zooming up the ladder, and I'm being really successful and loving this, loved my job. And then all of a sudden just kind of reached a bit of a wall, like, I can't really learn anymore. I can't get any more from this. I've got a bit bored. I've got a bit stale. Wasn't expecting that. What can I do? And at the time, the company were talking about opening an overseas office. I was like, send me, pick me, I want to go. And they're like, yeah, okay, great. And then the global financial crisis happened. And oh no. And so all of a sudden, all of my I'm gonna have a new experience, it's gonna be really exciting, just went out the window. And I decided, well, I can't just sit here because there's a global financial crisis, I can't just carry on, like do this boring stuff, that I already know. I've got to leave. And so I handed in my notice, and they were really shocked, obviously, because by that point I'd become relatively senior in the company, and was managing a successful team, and it was a global financial crisis, and you don't hand in your notice in recessions. But I did, and then I went off to try and find myself a job within my 3 months notice, and I realized no one's hiring in a global financial crisis. They're particularly not hiring overseas when you don't speak any languages, which was what I was trying to do. So I had to go back cap in hand 5 weeks later and ask for my job back, by which time they'd given it to my number 2. And I was then in a position where I could either take what they were offering me, which was to manage a team that were notoriously difficult and had sent 2 managers running in the opposite direction, or I could leave as intended. So I took the job because by that point I'd realized that there really wasn't much else out there. But it meant I had to sort of stay there and stick doing, and I had to leave my lovely team and go to this really not so lovely team, and just kind of ride it out. And so that meant I was really sort of dissatisfied for a good 2-year period. And then by 2011 they said, okay, we've got to a point where we're now back to where we were, and we want to open an overseas office, so we want to send you to Singapore. Yay, great. Okay, so finally I can go and have my new input, my new learning, my new development. So off I went, and it was amazing, and it was everything I wanted it to be, and it was starting from scratch on my own, the other side of the world, as hard as it could be. And I love all that. I love all that challenge, and I didn't realize I loved it until I got there and was doing it. But that was really where I thrived, and grew a team, and we got to about 14, and then that same wall came up, and it was like 3-year wall, like there it is. Oh man, no, I like it here. But then actually some other things started coming up, and did I really like Singapore? And I particularly, as someone who really cares about the environment, I found it quite hard being in Asia, because they really generally don't care that much, and they use a lot of plastic. They don't treat animals very nicely, and so I really felt at odds with my environment as well as with my job. And so this all then again, so it took me 3 years at that point to then actually make any kind of drastic action. And during that time, I explored a few different options. So you reminded me, Natasha, I actually went and attended an open day for a psychoanalyst course, because I had an idea that I might become a psychologist or something like that. And then and looked around at the people there, and I was like, this is not for me. This is much too academic. Like, there's no way I can go from my job now to doing this, just being on my own in a room with one person. And it just felt all wrong. But if I hadn't gone, I wouldn't have known. I would have potentially talked about it for months. And so just that interaction and that physical, like, oh, this is what the course is, and this is who it's for. And funnily enough, a girl that had worked for me was also in the same room, which is potentially really embarrassing. But fortunately, we'd left on quite good terms. So she didn't say anything to any of the people that worked for me at the time. But that really kind of was that. At that point, I was sort of pleased that I discovered that wasn't for me, but then also completely despairing, because, well, if that's not it, then what is it? And after, yeah, and it took me to 2016. It was my 12-year anniversary, and enough was enough. I had to just do something drastic to throw myself out of this. And so I left, and I and left all, you know, my team and everything behind. And I decided that I was going to take a year off, and I was going to get one of those magical, mythical round the world tickets, and just go for it, and go to all the places in the world that I'd always wanted to, but also do some of the things that I really enjoyed doing whilst I was traveling. And so I turned vegan the year before I left. And so I thought, well, one thing I love is food. And so I sort of had a seed of an idea that maybe I would discover some fantastic vegan product on my travels, and then be able to take that and make it, I suppose, a branded British product, or a branded something product, when I got back. So I went to organic farms, and I visited all sorts of really cool, like, little artisan food producers. And so went to India for a month, Italy, Colombia, Rio, Ecuador, Costa Rica, Mexico, all these fantastic places, all on my own. And just really kind of really pushed myself out of my comfort zone, just like, and having that year alone, I thought, well, that will mean that I figure this out, because I have to. I have no one to talk to. So you've got, you know, what else are you going to do? Well, it turned out I did exactly what I did when I was in Australia, which is I went and did all the things that you're supposed to do when you're visiting places, which is engage with the place that you're in, and meet the people, and understand the culture, and eat the food, crucially. And so inevitably, somewhat, I came back, and I was none the wiser once again about what I was going to do. So I had a few ideas. So I thought, well, vegan ice cream, definitely need vegan ice cream. Let's go and buy an ice cream maker, start making vegan ice cream. So started making vegan ice cream, made about 4 a day, I think, for about 10 days. And then I noticed that over that time, they'd got more and more savoury. And then realised that actually I don't really like ice cream. And I don't really like sweet things. So why am I making ice cream? That's really, really crazy. So I was like, right, okay, this clearly not the thing I should be doing. Let's take the ice cream maker back. Let's keep the wasabi pea ice cream and throw all the rest away, because that was the only nice one, really. And then was like, okay, so it's not going to be vegan ice cream. What else can I make? And then just and all I did was just I cooked from scratch for every meal, in the hope that I would just make a discovery, and hopefully come up with something brilliant, and that would be my vegan product. That didn't really happen. And so fortunately, I had also just been doing research online to look at vegan companies to see what was already out there. And in doing so, I stumbled across a vegan website called Vegan Nation. And I reached out to them because they had a token called Vegan Coin, which is a cryptocurrency. And they had a website, which was a marketplace. And it was all in beta mode, so it wasn't live yet or anything. But I was like, this is brilliant. This is a great idea, but it's really poorly executed. I can be the person that can come in and I can change all this. So basically messaged them and I said, I think your website's crap. I can help you with it. I can tell you where you've gone wrong. If you want to talk, let me know. And I didn't really have anything to lose because it was such a crap website that I didn't really want to work for them. I just kind of did. So they came back to me and said, okay, great, we'll make you our chief strategy officer and we'll pay you all of this money in cryptocurrency. It's like, okay. So at this point, I knew nothing about cryptocurrency, nothing about blockchain, nothing about any of that stuff. But thought, well, this will be interesting. So I started to work for them and discovered quite a lot about the vegan industry and started to meet people on behalf of that company. They also flew me to Hong Kong to an event, which I'd always wanted to go to when I was in Singapore, but my other company had been too cheap to send me. So that was a bit of a result. But whilst I was there, I realized that, and spent time with the founder, I realized that it wasn't cool and that they actually weren't doing what they were saying to people they were doing. And actually, it wasn't all that it cracked up to be. So, oh, damn it. Like, no. So they then sent me to Singapore to go to an event there. And so whilst I was there, I made the decision that I wasn't going to work with them anymore. But I'd managed to get a couple of nice trips out of it. So hadn't really lost anything, and had met some really good people as a result in the vegan industry. So then thought, well, maybe I'll just spend some time in the vegan industry talking to people. I've got business advice that I can offer and see what happens. So that's what I did. And I reached out to a local hummus producer in London called Chickpea, I spelt chic pea. And she was making hummus from surplus food waste, like vegetables and stuff. So I was like, this is an amazing product, let me help you. You don't have to pay me, I just want to get involved. And so you've got an extra person if you ever need. And then one day she rang me up and said, actually, I've double booked an event, could you go? So I went along, and one of the panelists said midway through his chat that he was looking for a marketing director. And afterwards, I didn't even mean to, but I just went up to him and said, I could probably help you with that. And it's like, okay, great. So I went home that night with a vacancy to fill, which I was really shocked at. And then he told me that it'd taken them, they'd been looking for a year, and it was for a plant-based business, a restaurant. They were a restaurant and an e-commerce business. And I'd never recruited for a restaurant or in food or anything. I'd been all tech and media and marketing and all that sort of stuff. I thought, I can do it. And so I did it in 3 weeks. And then the feeling I got from making that placement was like nothing I'd had since I'd left my job. And I realized that the thing that I love is the people of recruitment and the changing of people's lives. That's the thing that had kept me in that company for 12 years. That's the because it's changing people's lives and changing people's businesses for the better, because I know that when I find someone a really great person, it's going to improve their business. So it's got that double whammy of like, wow, that without it's going to be really difficult for me to find that with any other job. So I was like, but it's because it's a vegan company. That's why it's like triple wow. So it's like, right, well, I better work with, why don't I have my own vegan recruitment consultancy? Ta-da! Citizen Kind was born. And that was 2 years ago. So yeah, and it's been really great. So back in June, I took on my first employee in the middle of lockdown, and so that's been really interesting, but it's been really great. He's actually on this call, Jakob. And I suppose so much of what Natasha was saying resonated in that you've just got to do. You can't figure it out. I spent so much time just thinking, and there's no point. You've just got to go and do stuff, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. You've learned something from doing it and trying it. And so I guess, you know, I think now looking back, it seems obvious to me that I would set up a vegan recruitment agency. I mean, surely, and it's obvious to everyone, but no one could tell me back then that that's what I was going to do. So I suppose, yeah, advice wise, I'm quite happy to talk to anyone on this call that is looking for an ethical role or something in sustainability or vegan companies. They're the ones we work with. But again, this isn't a pitch for services. This is just, you know,
I know, pitch away. Do you know what? You've always, that's the thing. You've always got to pitch. Always back yourself. Always sell yourself. As Tasha said, you know, our brain lights up when we talk about ourselves. So mine must be permanently lit up, to be honest. So no, you just gotta, yeah. And women are really bad, aren't we? We're really bad at saying out loud what we've just achieved, or what, you know what I mean? I've just done this. It makes us in our head sound like arses, that, oh look, we're rating ourselves and we're, you know, Mr. Big I Am, whereas men are much better at going, I've done this and that, and, you know, overselling themselves, aren't they? So yeah. Totally.
And I wonder if that's because actually I remember when I was I must have been about 26, and I was one of the top 3 in the company, and there was a more senior director in the business who said to me at drinks one night, I don't like you, you're arrogant. I was just like, what? I'm not. It's like, yeah, you are. You're just full of it. I was like, oh my God, like, you're a director in the company, you are more senior than I am. Why would you talk to me like that? And yeah, obviously I've never really taken that sort of stuff very well. I actually reported him to my CEO, who also was a man and who also didn't do anything as a result. But yeah, I think a lot of that feeling of not wanting to shout about your achievements is something that almost the patriarchy have told us isn't attractive as a feature as a woman, and bollocks to that.
Yeah, that opinion. Yeah, early 20s, I was told to wear a short skirt to help win a pitch and keep my mouth shut because I was too opinionated sometimes. That worked well. I quit. kept the short skirts and kept being opinionated. So you've got but does anyone have any questions for Emma, or do you not feel free to contact her direct at Sistr Kind, because I'm sure she will answer anything and everything.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, one thing I was going to say about the moving jobs, definitely there is a tendency for people when they're hiring to want to hire people who have done the job before. That's, I mean, as a business owner, if you put yourself in their shoes, that makes sense. There's lower risk. Having said that, people don't just hire on that. People also hire on potential, and they hire on attitude, and they hire on personality. And so depending upon how big a feature those 3 things are in the job itself, that will tell you how important it is that you've done the job before. If you're doing something that's very technical naturally those things aren't as important. But if you're doing a job where it's very people focused, for example, like sales, then those things are the most important thing. And whether or not you've sold buttons or I don't know, cardboard, I don't know why those two things popped into my head, but it doesn't matter. If you can sell, you can sell, and if you can relate to people and build relationships and form and obviously be productive and perform in your role, and you've done that in your roles previously, then there's no reason that you couldn't do that with something else in a different frame.
Yeah, and on that, I just, sorry, go for it.
No,
Cut you off.
No, go on. No, it's all right.
No, I was going to say Kirsten is on here. I hadn't noticed you in here until you popped up, Kirsten. Who's got very relevant recent story of exactly that, and actually in the good old days of last month, able to meet when I last saw you, Kirsten, you had no idea what you were going to do. A bit of a downer, well, big downer, and yeah, carpet rug pulled from feet, literally. So it would be great if you can just say, yeah, what's happened to you in the last month, because I think it's very relevant to a lot of women.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You can hear me? Excellent. Well, yes, if I'd listened to Emma's advice, you'd have seen me on YouTube doing bloody cooking shows in the last month. But I wasn't quite that confident. No, look, I think it's been, thank you, all of you. So it's been some really interesting stuff. And in fact, if I was on video, you could see I've just put that Steve Jobs quote about connecting the dots backwards as my screensaver, because I think that is so true. And you know, often, again, I think someone else said in the thread, you don't know what you don't know. And Emma's right. I found myself having been made redundant after 20 plus years working in retail, most recently in a very salesy environment. However, I had done sort of operations, communications. And one of the past CEOs I worked for used to speak a lot about sometimes, you know, you've just got to create luck. And I think, Natasha, you were saying about, you know, just start doing new things, talking to new people, you will create new environments. And you know, I didn't go out seeking the role that I'm now doing. It all sort of found me, but really by association, by things I was involved in. But I think what struck me, which, you know, I did want to put on the thread, is I didn't know quite how many transferable skills I had. And whilst I may not be selling frocks anymore, you know what? I can bloody sell a brand. I can write 57-page operational documents, because I've spoken to 600 store managers via written communication on stages before, on webinars. I can write marketing pitch documents for investors. And you know what I've also realized is, you know, sometimes we think, you know, oh God, you just I do say this a lot, just fucking wing it. But actually, you know what, if you don't know the answer, you can always find it out. And actually that's been really helpful for me, because where I've been having to find out the world of medical technology, and specifically this is around COVID-19 testing, actually I've educated myself on so many new things by putting myself in this new environment. So actually it's quite exciting in that respect as well. But as I say, look, it didn't come easily. And back to Natasha's point, you've just got to put yourself out there, have conversations with people, get to know people, chat, make new friends. Yeah, I just never thought I'd be working in the world of academics. I'm the least academic person I think I know. So yeah, you just don't know. Put yourself out there, be vulnerable, be brave.
Cool. Exactly. Thank you. And that's, I think, it's a perfect example of the moment and the times at the moment. And I think the recent stat was like over 80% of the people losing jobs at the moment are women. Just the nature of women in careers and women at home and the juggle and everything. So you're not alone. That's the thing. And I think the more you talk to people, the more you get into different groups and different events, the more you realize actually you're very normal. Everyone, even people in jobs at the moment, are thinking it. And especially women are very good at squiggly careers, as we call it, the journey. So do you know what, I'll let Natasha end, having listened to Emma and Kirsten, and yeah, end this webinar off.
Oh, wow. What would you like me to end it with?
I don't know. How do you want to end it? What's your feel of how to end it?
I think, listening to Kirsten and listening to Emma and thinking about the career changes that I've worked with this year in particular, there are so many narratives about how the world is and how the world of work has to work and how we are as women and all of this kind of stuff that can get into your head and have you see the world in a certain way. And what I've heard from everybody who's shared today is this sense of curiosity. This sense of connecting with other people has been really key in conversations or going to events. Emma, you said you went to the psychoanalyst event. Well, it isn't for me. It isn't for me. Putting people around you, getting curious about the things that interest you, doing things that you don't think are possible. Like Kirsten, I loved what you said about, I didn't realize how many transferable skills I had. We think we know all kinds of things about ourselves that aren't true. And the way to find out the truth about it and the way to find out what's out there is to go and get involved in the world. So go and have conversations with interesting people. Go and do things that seem like fun, whether they're related to careers or not. Notice what you're learning at every step of the game. Celebrate the dead ends as much as the paths that seem to be opening up, because every dead end you can tick off is a bullet dodged in terms of jumping out the frying pan and into the fire. And remember, and what I love about what you guys are doing here with Sistr is that you don't have to do it on your own. Each and every one of us is here and available and excited to be a resource to support one another and to share our advice and our guidance and our experiences, whether they're impressive and green smoothie-esque or whether they're really not. And I hope that as a starting point is reassuring that it is new. The approach of finding a new career and finding a fulfilling career is likely to require things of you that you haven't done before. And it can actually be really fun. And as everybody said, I'll add my name in the hat. If there's anything that we at Careershifters can do to support anybody, then we're here and available.
Cool. But you know what, I think that's a great point to end on. So everyone needs to get off this webinar and find another one that they're going to go on this week. There's a starting point. There's a small step you can do. Or if you're really bored, we're going live on Instagram at midday today, actually with a very cool Amanda Newman, who's been in IT for 20 years at Accenture, but launched a big setup called the Career Mum. It's not just mums, but it's big on changing careers, and it's a huge, great Facebook group that now do She Has No Limits Expo, and she's amazing with a great story for kids. So she's on Instagram with us at midday. Is it midday today? No, 1
o'clock.
1 o'clock. Yeah, 1 o'clock. So yeah, if you're really bored, come on over there. Yeah, we've got loads of other webinars coming up and chats. So just keep listening and being curious is all I'm going to end on. And thank you very much for coming.
See you guys.
See you later.